Story 1. My parents offered to pay for my college, but with strict conditions. I refused and pursued my dream. Now they want to control my baby's future. I, 32F, have been struggling with my relationship with my parents, 60s MF, and sister Patricia, 35F, for years, mainly due to my career choice and financial decisions. To understand the current situation, I need to go back to my high school days. Growing up, our family always appeared perfect from the outside. My dad was a successful accountant, and my mom was a respected high school principal. They were pillars of our community, involved in local charities and our church. Patricia and I were expected to maintain this image of the perfect family. When I was 16 and Patricia was 19, our parents sat us down for what they called a family meeting. These meetings were usually reserved for big announcements or serious discussions. Patricia was already in her first year of college, having started her pre-med track. I remember feeling nervous, wondering what this could be about. Our parents revealed that they had been saving for our college education since we were born. They had substantial college funds for both of us, which was a relief because I had been worrying about how to pay for college. However, the relief was short-lived as they began listing the conditions attached to accessing these funds. To get our college fully paid for 4 years, we had to attend a state school, maintain a 3.5 GPA, allow them access to our grades each semester, stay out of any legal trouble, and they had to approve our majors. Their reasoning was that they didn't work hard and save money for years just for us to waste it on a useless degree. They also promised a monthly allowance if we agreed to these terms. Patricia, already in college and thriving in her pre-med program, quickly agreed. She had always been the golden child, effortlessly meeting our parents' expectations. I, on the other hand, felt a sense of dread. I had always been more creative, more of a dreamer. While I excelled in my English and art classes, I struggled with math and science. At the time, not knowing what else to do, I reluctantly agreed. I was allowed to spend my first year undeclared to complete my general education requirements. I hoped that during this time, I'd find a major that both interested me and would meet my parents' approval. That year was tough. I took a mix of classes, trying to find my passion while also considering what my parents would accept. I joined the college newspaper and fell in love with writing. I took a creative writing class as an elective and found myself looking forward to it more than any other class. During the summer after my freshman year, my parents sat me down again. They said it was time to pick a major. With a mix of hope and fear, I admitted that my passion wasn't in the fields they wanted. I told them about how much I loved writing, how I had excelled in my creative writing class, and how I wanted to major in creative writing. The silence that followed was deafening. Then my dad laughed, thinking I was joking. When he realized I was serious, his face hardened. My mom looked disappointed. They both started listing reasons why this was a bad idea. No stable career, low earning potential, not a real job. I tried to argue my case. I talked about famous authors, about how writing could lead to various career paths like journalism or publishing. I even suggested double majoring in creative writing and something they approved of, but they wouldn't budge. My parents said these were the terms and cut me off financially. They said I could continue with their support if I chose an acceptable major, but creative writing was out of the question. Patricia, who was home for the summer, sided with our parents. She called me ungrateful and accused me of trying to take advantage of our parents' generosity. I was devastated. I felt like my dreams were being crushed, but I couldn't bring myself to give in. So I made the difficult decision to go it alone. I moved out of my parents' house and into a tiny apartment with 2 roommates. I took a full-time job as a waitress and reduced my course load to part-time. It was incredibly hard. I was working long hours, often late into the night, then trying to study and complete assignments. My grades suffered initially as I struggled to balance work and school, but I was determined to prove to myself and my family that I could do this. It took me 6 years to graduate, but I did it with a degree in creative writing. During this time, my relationship with my family became increasingly strained. They would often compare me to Patricia, who had graduated medical school and started her residency as a pediatrician. After graduation, I struggled to find a job in my field. I worked various odd jobs, barista, receptionist, retail, to make ends meet while trying to establish myself as a writer. I wrote whenever I could, submitting short stories to literary magazines and working on my novel during my lunch breaks and late into the night. During this time, I met Dustin, 34M, at a local writing workshop. He was an aspiring screenwriter working as a high school English teacher. We bonded over our love of storytelling and our struggles to break into the industry. Dustin was incredibly supportive of my writing dreams, always encouraging me to keep trying even when I felt like giving up. 3 years ago, I finally got my big break. A small publishing house picked up my first novel, a coming-of-age story that drew heavily from my own experiences. To my surprise and delight, it became a moderate success. The sales weren't astronomical, but they were enough for me to quit my day job and focus on writing full-time. Dustin proposed shortly after on the night of my first book signing. We got married last year in a small ceremony. My parents and Patricia attended, but their congratulations felt forced. My mom made a comment about how I was finally settling down and hoped that marriage would bring some stability to my life. Throughout this time, my relationship with my parents and Patricia remained strained. They never approved of my career choice and often made snide comments about how I should have listened to them. Patricia, now a successful pediatrician, frequently bragged about her achievements and how she made the right choice. Last month, Dustin and I found out we were expecting our first child. We were over the moon. After years of focusing on our careers, we felt ready to start a family. We decided to share the news with both our families over dinner. Dustin's parents were overjoyed. They immediately started talking about nursery themes and offering to babysit. When we told my parents and Patricia, their reaction was lukewarm at best. My mom's first question was if we could afford to have a baby on a writer's salary. My dad suggested I should consider getting a real job now that I had a family to support. Patricia chimed in, saying she hoped the baby would inherit Dustin's practicality instead of my flighty nature. I was hurt by their reactions but tried to brush it off. I told myself they were just concerned about the baby's well-being. However, things came to a head last week when my parents called to discuss the baby shower. They offered to host it, which initially seemed like a peace offering, but then they started listing their conditions. They wanted to approve the guest list, choose the theme, and have a say in how we plan to raise the baby. They talked about the importance of a college fund, with terms of course, and how we needed to start thinking about the baby's future career from day one. I was shocked. Felt like history repeating itself. I told them that Dustin and I would make decisions about our child. My mom said, "These are the terms if you want our help." It brought back painful memories of the college fund situation. I declined their offer and said we'd plan the shower ourselves. They seemed genuinely surprised by my refusal. My dad said I was being stubborn and short-sighted. My mom implied that I was denying my child opportunities out of spite. Patricia called me later that day, berating me for turning down our parents' generous offer. She said I was being stubborn and selfish and that I should be grateful for any help I can get, especially with my unstable career. She went on about how she wished she was in a position to start a family. She's single and focused on her career, and how I was squandering the support she would love to have. I'm at a loss. I thought having a baby would bring my family closer, but it seems to have widened the rift. Dustin thinks we should distance ourselves from my family for the sake of our mental health and our future child. Part of me agrees, but another part still hopes for reconciliation. I can't help but wonder if I'm overreacting. Am I wrong for wanting to set boundaries with my family? Should I have accepted their help despite the conditions? I don't want to deprive my child of grandparents and an aunt, but I also don't want them to treat my child the way they've treated me. The stress of this situation is taking a toll on me, and I'm worried about how it might affect my pregnancy. I want to focus on the joy of becoming a mother, but instead, I'm constantly anxious about family drama. How do I navigate this situation while protecting myself, my marriage, and my unborn child? Update 1. It's been about a month since my last post, and I want to thank everyone for their supportive comments and advice. Your perspectives really helped me gain clarity on my situation. After a lot of discussion with Dustin, we decided to set firm boundaries with my family. We spent several evenings talking it through, weighing the pros and cons, and discussing how we want to raise our child. Dustin shared some of his own family history, his parents' divorce when he was young, and he saw firsthand how important it is to have a united front. We drafted an email together, carefully choosing our words. We explained that while we appreciate their concern, we are capable adults who can make our own decisions about our careers, finances, and how we raise our child. We made it clear that unsolicited advice and criticism would not be tolerated and that our decisions regarding our child are not up for debate. Sending that email was one of the hardest things I've ever done. My hand shook as I hit the send button, and I spent the next few hours feeling alternately empowered and guilty. The response from my family was mixed to say the least. My dad didn't reply at all, which is typical of him. He tends to retreat when faced with conflict. My mom sent a terse message saying she was disappointed in our decision but would try to respect it. Her message was full of passive-aggressive comments about how they only wanted what was best for us and the baby. Patricia, however, exploded. She called me yelling about how I was tearing the family apart and that I would regret pushing them away when I needed help with the baby. She brought up every mistake I'd ever made, from my foolish decision to study creative writing to my unstable career choice. The call ended with her saying she wasn't sure she wanted a relationship with me if this was how I was going to behave. Despite the family drama, Dustin and I went ahead with planning our baby shower. We decided to have a small, intimate gathering with close friends and Dustin's family. Planning it was actually a joy. We chose a children's book theme as a nod to our love of storytelling. The shower itself was lovely, filled with genuine joy and excitement for our baby. It was a stark contrast to the tension with my family, and it reinforced that we were making the right decision and setting boundaries. A week after the shower, I received a surprising call from my childhood best friend Lily, 32F. We had drifted apart after high school, mainly due to attending different colleges and the demands of our lives. She had heard about the family drama from a mutual friend and wanted to check on me. During our conversation, Lily revealed something that shed new light on my family's behavior. Apparently, when we were in high school, my parents had approached Lily's parents with a similar college fund deal. Lily's parents, both teachers, had refused, saying it was manipulative and would put too much pressure on Lily. This led to a falling out between our families, which explained why Lily and I had drifted apart after high school. Learning this was like a missing puzzle piece falling into place. It made me realize that my parents' controlling behavior wasn't unique to me or even to their children. It was a pattern that extended to how they interacted with others as well. This information strengthened my resolve to maintain boundaries, not just for myself but for the sake of my child. On a happier note, my writing career has been going well. My publisher offered me a 2-book deal based on the outline for my next novel and the sales performance of my first book. This deal will provide some financial stability for our growing family, which is a relief. I've set up a writing schedule that I hope to maintain even after the baby arrives. Dustin has been incredibly supportive through all of this. He's even converting our guest room into a home office for me, complete with a comfortable armchair for when I need to write while nursing. His excitement about becoming a father is infectious, and it helps balance out the stress from my family situation. As my pregnancy progresses, we've been attending childbirth classes and preparing for the baby's arrival. It's bittersweet doing this without my family's involvement, but it's also liberating to make decisions without judgment or conditions. We're focusing on creating a positive, loving environment for our child. We've decided not to share any more pregnancy updates with my family. If they want to be involved, they'll need to reach out and show that they can respect our boundaries. Until then, we're focusing on the excitement of becoming parents and creating the kind of loving, supportive family we want our child to grow up in. The journey hasn't been easy, and I still have moments of doubt and sadness, but overall, I feel more at peace with our decisions. We're building a support network of friends in Dustin's family, and I'm learning that family isn't always about blood relations. As we prepare for our baby's arrival, I'm filled with a mix of emotions: excitement, nervousness, and a tinge of sadness that my family might not be as involved as I once hoped. But I'm also filled with determination to break the cycle and create a different kind of family environment for my child. Update 2. Another 2 months have passed, and I'm now well into my 3rd trimester. The baby is healthy and growing well, and we recently found out we're having a girl. Dustin and I are over the moon. We've started decorating the nursery in a woodland theme with soft greens and purples. Dustin has been painting little animals on the walls. His hidden artistic talent has been a delightful surprise. We've had no contact with my parents or Patricia since my last update. The silence has been difficult, especially as the birth approaches. There are moments when I wish I could call my mom to ask for advice or share my excitement, but then I remember the conditions and judgment that would come with that interaction, and I know we're making the right choice for our mental health and our daughter's well-being. Interestingly, my conversation with Lily sparked a rekindling of our friendship. We've been meeting up regularly for coffee, decaf for me, of course, and it's been wonderful to reconnect. She's been a great support system, sharing her own experiences with her 2 kids and offering a listening ear when I need to vent about family issues. Lily even threw us a surprise baby sprinkle with our close friends. It was a small, intimate gathering, but it was incredibly touching. Our friends brought books to help build the baby's life library, and we spent the afternoon sharing parenting stories and advice. It made me realize that while I might not have my biological family's support, I have a strong chosen family who care about us. On the career front, I've been making good progress on my new novel. The story is flowing well, and I've completed the first draft. My editor loves it, and we're aiming for a release date shortly after the baby is born. It's been challenging to balance writing with preparing for the baby, but it's also been a welcome distraction from family stress. Dustin has been amazing throughout all of this. He's taken on more household responsibilities to give me time to write and rest. He's also been my rock emotionally, always there to reassure me when I have moments of doubt or sadness about the situation with my family. Last week, we received an unexpected letter from my maternal grandmother, Nana, 85F. Nana lives in Florida and has always been a bit removed from our family dynamics. I've always been fond of her, but we don't see each other often due to the distance. In her letter, Nana expressed her disappointment in how my parents and Patricia have been treating me. She revealed that she had a similar experience with her own parents when she chose to become a teacher instead of following the family business of running a small grocery store. Her parents had disapproved, saying teaching wasn't a real career for a woman in those days. Nana encouraged me to stay true to myself and offered her unconditional support. She even enclosed a check as a gift for the baby, with no strings attached. She wrote that she hopes to visit once the baby is born and things have settled down. Nana's letter was incredibly comforting. It made me realize that while I may not have my parents' or sister's support, I'm not alone. I have Dustin, my friends, Dustin's family, and now Nana in my corner. It's a powerful reminder that family is about love and support, not control and conditions. We're now in full nesting mode, preparing for our daughter's arrival. We've been attending birthing classes, touring the hospital, and finalizing our birth plan. Despite the family drama, I'm feeling more confident and excited about this new chapter in our lives. As the due date approaches, I find myself reflecting on the journey that brought us here. While it hasn't been easy, I'm proud of the boundaries we've set and the family we're creating. I'm determined to break the cycle of conditional love and support that I grew up with. Our daughter will know that she is loved unconditionally, and that her dreams are valid no matter what path she chooses in life. Update 3. Our daughter Zoe was born 3 weeks ago, and our lives have changed in the most wonderful way. The birth went smoothly, and both Zoe and I are doing well. Dustin has been an incredible father and partner, taking paternity leave to help during these early weeks. The first few days were a whirlwind of sleepless nights, diaper changes, and figuring out breastfeeding. But every time I look at Zoe's tiny face, I'm filled with an overwhelming love I never knew was possible. Dustin and I are learning together, supporting each other through the challenges of new parenthood. 2 days after Zoe's birth, I received a text from Patricia. She had seen the birth announcement I posted on social media and congratulated us. Her message seemed genuinely warm, without any of the usual judgmental undertones. I was cautiously optimistic but also wary of getting my hopes up. A week later, Patricia called and asked if she could visit. After discussing it with Dustin, we agreed but set clear guidelines for the visit. To our surprise, Patricia arrived with a heartfelt apology. She admitted that seeing my success and happiness made her question the choices she had made in her own life. Patricia revealed that she had recently started therapy to work through some of her issues. She realized how unfairly she had treated me, and how much of her behavior stemmed from her own insecurities and the pressure she felt to meet our parents' expectations. It was a raw, honest conversation that brought us both to tears. Patricia's visit went well. She respected our boundaries, genuinely seemed to enjoy spending time with Zoe, and even complimented my parenting. She asked about my writing and seemed sincerely interested when I told her about my upcoming book. It felt like a step towards rebuilding our relationship. As for our parents, we still haven't heard from them. Patricia mentioned that they're struggling to accept that their controlling behavior has pushed me away. She's encouraging them to seek family counseling, but it's a slow process. While part of me hopes they'll come around, I'm also at peace with the possibility that they might not. For now, we're focusing on our new life as parents. Balancing childcare and my writing career is challenging, but we're figuring it out day by day. I've set up a small writing nook in the nursery where I can work while Zoe naps. It's not always easy, but the joy of pursuing my passion while being there for my daughter is worth every struggle. Dustin has been my rock through all of this. He's taken to fatherhood with enthusiasm and patience. Watching him with Zoe, singing her silly songs and reading her stories, makes me fall in love with them all over again. Our relationship has only grown stronger through this experience. Nana is planning to visit next month, and we can't wait for her to meet Zoe. Her support has meant the world to us. Lily has been a frequent visitor, even babysitting so Dustin and I could have our first date night since Zoe's birth. Our friends have rallied around us, bringing meals, offering help, and showering Zoe with love. Looking back on this journey, I'm proud of the boundaries we've set and maintained. While the situation with my parents is still unresolved, I'm at peace with our decisions. Our priority is creating a loving, supportive environment for Zoe, free from manipulation and conditional love. As I watch Zoe grow and change every day, I'm reminded of why I fought so hard to follow my dreams. I want her to know that she can pursue her passions, whatever they may be, and that her parents will support her unconditionally. That's the legacy I want to leave for my daughter. The road hasn't been easy, and I'm sure there will be more challenges ahead. But as I sit here writing this update with Zoe sleeping peacefully in her bassinet next to me, I know we've made the right choices. We're building the family we've always wanted, one based on love, respect, and support. To those who might be facing similar struggles with family expectations and conditional love, I want to say, stay true to yourself. It's not always easy, but it's worth it. You have the power to break cycles and create the life you want. Surround yourself with people who support and love you unconditionally, and remember, family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about the people who stand by you when it matters most. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Before we start, if you're enjoying this video so far, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Now let's continue. Dream wedding turns into a nightmare when my fiancé's ex barges in and exposes his secret affair. Last week, I, F31, was supposed to get married to my fiancé, M35, of 3 years. He was the love of my life. We spent 3 years together where we loved, cared, and supported each other. We had our share of ups and downs, but we got past it all hand in hand. He proposed to me at the end of last year, and since then, everything has been a fairy tale. I was so happy. We decided everything together. We had our dream wedding planned out for a year. I took a month off work just to make sure everything went right. The food, the drinks, the music. We invited all our friends and family to share in our day. But instead, the day has made a black mark on my life. It has given me severe trust issues and has broken me completely. Worse, I am still doubting myself. Did I do the right thing? Did I overreact? Should I have seen it coming? My best friend says I should share this story with Reddit. I am trying to write this all down. Please don't be harsh. I am hoping you guys can help me. It all started a few weeks before the wedding day. Everything was going smoothly except for one small incident, which in hindsight must have seemed odd, but I brushed it off when it happened. A few days before the day, my fiancé came back home looking upset. I thought he was getting cold feet. I asked him what it was, but he seemed reluctant to share. I pestered him, and he said that it was about the wedding. He went on to reveal to me that his ex texted him asking if she could come to the wedding. Apparently, she wanted to be a part of his special day. In all honesty, I was surprised a little bit about this ex-girlfriend. This woman has never liked me. My fiancé and her were high school sweethearts. He had warned me about her beforehand. They broke up when he moved away for college, and in his words, she took it hard. In the early days of our relationship, she'd keep texting him from different numbers. She seemed to have trouble accepting the fact that he had moved on, and in her own words, I was just a passing affair. She'd call him late in the night and would tell everyone that they would end up together. It was bizarre. I really thought she needed help. All this while, they supported me. He tried to make her understand, but this woman, let me tell you, was unhinged. Once, she went on to call and declare her love for him after getting drunk at a party. That incident was the final nail in the coffin. I confronted her and blocked her. He promised me he'd never let her interfere between us anymore. To say I was relieved is an understatement. I had initially even forgotten about her. It had been 2 years. I didn't see her for a long time. It was all good until one day when we ran into her while attending a common friend's birthday party. She was back in town for her cousin's wedding. I was hoping she'd be over it after such a long time, especially because she was dating someone. Boy, was I wrong. The woman, as usual, seemed often quite rude. I remember her talking with him and asking how he was doing, but not once did she speak to me directly, like I didn't even exist. Her poor boyfriend kept interrupting her, but she ignored him. She kept going on and on about their lives while dismissing me and her date in front of everyone. She even asked him to dance with her. I immediately refused, but I felt so disrespected and humiliated. Needless to say, this request seemed upsetting. This woman had been nothing but rude to me. I couldn't believe that my fiancé would even consider inviting her. I told him that I didn't feel comfortable with her coming to our wedding, and he agreed. He said he would talk to her. I thought that was the end of it. Hell no. A few days later, I got an FB request from the ex. It was a generic, "I really hope to celebrate J and A's happiness. Can we put it all behind us?" The text message only made me more suspicious. It was not unusual for her to have hidden motives. Although she was acting sweet, I felt uncomfortable. I had a gut feeling that she was looking to stir drama, so I did what I thought was the best in the situation. I didn't respond to her and prayed she'd leave me alone. She tried to text me again, but I blocked her. I am really bad at confrontations, and this woman had a history of making a scene. I didn't want to argue with her. Instead, I had a conversation with my fiancé, and he assured me that he'd handle it. The next few days were uneventful. I was pretty much busy with my bridal shower and other arrangements. I thought it was finally over until the day of the wedding rolled around. I see myself in a beautiful gown, ready to take my vows. Our wedding party is all decked up, and we are all ready. Suddenly, someone comes up to my maid of honor and tells her about an uninvited guest who was causing a scene. I hear a commotion and find out that a few of the guests have gathered around a screaming woman. It was my fiancé's ex. She was dressed in the tiniest dress I've ever seen and a face full of makeup. My heart dropped. I didn't want her to cause a scene at my wedding. I immediately requested to call security. However, seeing me, she immediately barged up the altar. Bridesmaids were trying to take her away, but this woman was constantly screaming. I felt she wanted to attack me. It was so scary. She had this knowing look on her face and was asking my fiancé to tell her, or I would, and that she does not deserve to stand here. All this while, he has been quiet. He looks as if he has seen a ghost. I felt too embarrassed by now. Shouldn't he be taking a stand for me? Why was he defiantly quiet? I take my would-be husband aside while the groomsmen and other friends try to de-escalate the situation. I kept as calm as I could and asked him why she was there. He tried to play it dumb by saying he had no idea, but there was no way she could have gotten the address without someone telling her. I asked him again and begged him to be honest. To my surprise, his reaction was to quiet me down. He tells me that I should let her attend. All she wants is to wish us a happy life ahead because they share a past. Red flags immediately started going off in my head. There has to be something wrong. How could he take the ex's side when all this woman ever did was disrespect us? I started arguing with him, but he didn't seem to budge. At that moment, I already knew he was hiding something. Just then, I saw my best friend, let's call her D for the sake of the story, coming towards us. She has a death glare in her eyes. She proceeded to take my hand and told me that the ex had just told her that my future husband and she had spent the night together last week. The ex told them and a handful of guests how she called him over, and while talking about things they realized they felt the same. I didn't even need to confirm it. His dropped face said it all. He immediately started apologizing, saying that it was just a huge misunderstanding. Couldn't hear a word. All I could do was weep. I almost had a panic attack. The most important day of my life was ruined, and the woman who initiated it was standing in the midst of it, smirking like she had won. I somehow walked out of the ceremony. He tried to follow me, begged my friends to help him out and screamed at the ex, but it was too late. My parents threatened him and somehow made him quiet down. The wedding was over, and so was our relationship. I begged someone to drive me back home. I have done nothing but cry for days. This was supposed to be the week of my honeymoon, but here I am, sitting in the home I decorated with him, sitting alone and mourning. I keep asking myself how this could happen to me. I don't have any energy left. I can't eat, sleep, or drink. My phone keeps blowing up, and I can't even get up from my bed. I just want to be left alone right now. I don't feel like I can talk to anyone. My best friend and others have been supportive, but I can't help but feel distraught. It doesn't help that he keeps ringing my phone from different numbers. I don't know what I'd do next. A part of me wants to talk to him. I feel like asking him why he did this to me, but I know it is all in vain. This man has cheated on me, and there is no coming back from that. On the other hand, I am afraid I'm overreacting. Some of our friends think that I'm letting the ex-girlfriend win, that I should at least talk to him. This has left me more confused. I don't know if walking out was the right thing to do. Should I talk to him? I really need advice. Update 1. Hello everyone. Before I begin, I want to thank you all. The comment section has been so kind and supportive to me. I'm sorry for taking so long to update. I wasn't feeling up to it, but I have been reading all your advice. I was doubting whether I did the right thing, but after all this time, you guys have given me so much hope. You're right. I am better off without him. He cheated on me and it is over. I have decided that I'd never doubt myself again. Some people shared their own stories, which has been comforting. At least I'm not alone. I don't have anything interesting, but since I got a few DMs, I decided to post an update anyway and answer some of your questions. It has been 2 weeks since the awful day. Since we had already paid for everything, my friends and family apologized to the guests. My parents have been quite understanding. Dad made sure to have my locks changed because he has threatened to come over multiple times. He even set up his friends to try and talk some sense into me. He left several voice notes for me. He is begging to let him come over. He says that he just wants to talk to me. I can't even look at him. What does he want from me now? I am already devastated. I don't know what I'd do if I were alone. I am so grateful to my family and friends for protecting me. They have been barring him from trying to come over, but I'd admit I'm a bit scared. I might be overreacting, but I'm starting to feel paranoid in this house. He has gone from being remorseful to plain angry. I cannot imagine him being the same man anymore. Many people have asked if he had actually cheated on me and whether this was just a drama that the ex-girlfriend stirred up. Well, yes, he did. I wish it wasn't true. I wanted to believe it wasn't. I even tried to manipulate him over this. He went on to say this was a misunderstanding. I would have even believed him given the history of the ex. However, she had pictures. She shared them with D that very day. Let's just say they were enough to prove the cheating happened. A few people DM'd D asking if I had any doubt over him, especially since he cheated on me just a week before the date of the wedding. Like I said in one comment, he had never given me any reason to doubt him. We live in a shared house that we pay for. Looking back, he was supposed to be at his bachelor party the week this happened. His phone was unreachable, but I thought it was because he was busy with his friends. When we met the next day, he seemed a little fidgety, but I chalked it up to stress with the upcoming wedding day. I wish I had pestered him that day itself. It would have saved me from so much humiliation. All in all, I'm trying my best to survive this. Luckily, my fiancé and I hadn't bought our house. I will be moving out in a few days. I have destroyed my old number because I was too fed up with everyone blowing up my phone. He kept calling and texting me. His ex has sent me some scathing messages. The woman has the audacity to call me dramatic after all the she put me through. I wanted to scream at her, but I realized that drama is all she lives for. I've just blocked her for my own peace of mind. My best friend has stayed with me, trying to cheer me up. She has taken over cooking and cleaning so that I don't feel overwhelmed. My parents also agree that I need a fresh start. I can't imagine what could have happened if I had gone through with the wedding. I am relieved that I didn't marry a cheater. Things are rough right now, but I hope it will get better. Thank you to everyone who commented. I'll keep you guys updated. Update 2. It has been a few weeks since the last update. Things have been interesting since then, and I thought I should share it with this loving community. It is not a happy update, but I have discovered more truth in this situation, and I'm going to talk about it, y'all. I guess Reddit is my therapy now. A few days back, I saw a call coming on my phone. This was surprising because I hadn't shared my new number with anyone except my best friend and my parents. I was afraid to pick it up because it might be him, but eventually, I accepted it out of curiosity more than anything else. It was Dee's boyfriend. He said that he and some of our mutual friends wanted to come over to our house. He said they wanted to make sure I was doing okay and talk to me. It was a small get-together where I could vent, and he promised this was just to cheer me up. This was a little bit suspicious to me as Dee had never talked about any such event. She was here until this morning and was off to work at this point. He and I have mutual friends, and I had a gut feeling that this get-together was more than it seemed. Moreover, I didn't feel like having people over anyway. But the boyfriend explained that this was a surprise, and they just needed to ask me about my schedule first so I wasn't busy. I replied that I didn't feel like having people over right now as I just wanted to be by myself. He did not take it well. I refused multiple times, and he kept pushing me, trying to change my mind, saying things like I should give them a chance and talking to friends would make me feel better. I said I'd get back to him if I changed my mind, but not right now. After cutting the call, I immediately texted my best friend asking her if she shared my number with her boyfriend and how he was planning this get-together with our mutual friends. Dee sounded quite surprised and told me that she had no idea what I was talking about. She told me to not bother about it, reassuring me that she'd talk to him and find out what this was about. Fast forward to last night. Dee sat me down. She told me she had taken a break from her boyfriend because she had learned some pretty shocking news. It was then that I found out how my POS of an ex had tried to get all my friends by his side. My best friend told me that he told them a cooked-up story, saying that we had been fighting for months before the wedding, and he was forced to contact his ex. That's right. They had been in contact for months. Half of our friends thought I was a manipulative a-hole, and he was a saint who made a tiny mistake in the heat of the moment. I can't believe I was listening to these people all this while and doubting myself. That day, they had all decided to talk to me so they could solve this for us. He had manipulated them into thinking that we should not throw 3 years away. Honestly, I don't even have words right now. Was this the man I loved, the one who was plotting these mind games against me? He had been emotionally cheating on me for months while pretending to be the best fiancé ever. How could I be so blind? What makes this worse is that I was busy planning out a dream wedding for us when he kept going back to his ex-girlfriend. I don't believe that the cheating happened only once. Since how long were these two bluffing around? I've been going back and forth through every small incident that happened in the last year. Who knows how many times I've been fooled? I feel as if that woman has won. She has ruined my life. Needless to say, I have a lot of trust issues right now. I thought the wedding day was the end of it, but I have continued to suffer. I've been getting panic attacks every night. The only silver lining is my best friend and my parents. My dad has been my hero. He went over to my ex's house and basically chewed him out. He lashed out at him, threatening to file a restraining order if he didn't stop. Dee sent a text to everyone who was on his side, explaining that he was not being truthful and that if they tried to get us into the same room, we'd cut them off as well. Some people even argued with her, saying she should not meddle between us. Can you imagine? Thankfully, things have been quiet since then. I have applied for an extended leave from work. I really need to get a break from this town. Maybe a vacation or a small trip will help me clear my mind. I will keep you updated in case anything new happens. Update 3. Kind people have read it. Thank you for all the support and love. Last month has been traumatizing for me. I've been unable to eat and sleep and find it hard to trust anyone. I had never thought a bunch of strangers on the internet would be so supportive and kind to me. I don't know what I would do without you guys. As promised, I am here with another update. I finally moved out of our shared apartment. I am currently living with D, reliving the old years, lol, but we're looking for new places. I originally decided to go for a solo honeymoon, but I didn't want to relive the old memories. I have finally stopped crying in the night, and I'm getting some sleep. I didn't want to mess it up. We heard from some common friends that the ex-girlfriend has been trying to get together with him. She showed up at his house uninvited, offering to take care of him. He obviously shot it down. Now, the ex-girlfriend is hurt because he has proved to her that she'd always be a side piece. I just laughed. They say he is quite devastated and was told that he messed up big time to everyone who would listen. The so-called friends who took his side are angry with him too. For all I care, he can go to hell. I am done with the drama. I loved and cared for him for 3 years. He threw that all away without thinking about me. I am not trying to be an a-hole, but hearing him suffer feels so good right now. He deserves it. I am trying my best to move on. Last night, D and I burned down all his photos with me, and I am trying to sell the engagement ring as well. He is still trying to contact me. He even got his family to beg for him. I am amused at his audacity. D and others have berated him multiple times, and yet he can't seem to stop. He keeps calling and texting from different numbers. I would not change my number again. I keep blocking him. His misery is my entertainment at this point. Update 4. Dear Redditors, the last 2 months have taught me a lot. I went from getting married to losing everything to finding myself. I have realized I am far stronger than I thought I could be. Couldn't have done it without you. Many of you kept commenting and sending me lovely messages. I never felt alone. Y'all are very kind. However, it is time for me to move on. I have decided to start my life afresh. After living in my hometown for all these years, I traveled to a whole new city. I don't want to jinx it, but I landed a job opportunity as well. The pay is almost double from my last job, and this is a quiet town which will help me live in peace for a while. Some of my friends and D have helped me move into a new house. I am excited to begin all new. This is the start of a new chapter in my life, and I am very hopeful. Another update is that I have started taking therapy again. I should have never stopped talking about it. It makes it easier right now. My parents are helping me pay for it. My mental health has been going downhill ever since the whole fiasco happened. Many of you even pointed it out. You were right. Dwelling on negative feelings isn't going to be good. My therapist is helping me navigate my emotions. I feel so much better these days. The pain is still there, but I have been coping well. As for my ex, he has finally stopped contacting me. I hear his parents and friends have cut him off too. He is getting a lot of heat for his actions. I feel nothing for him now. Things have turned so ugly that I have stopped caring about it. I have cut off a lot of people that I thought were my friends. I want to focus on my own well-being. Here before going, I'd like to thank you all again. I hope people have been able to learn from my experience. Thank you for being kind to me. Now on to the next story. Story 3. I'm a 27-year-old woman hitched to Jake, who's 29, for the past 4 years, though we've been in each other's lives for 8. Half a year into our relationship, Jake introduced me to his clan. While most of them gave me the thumbs up, his mom, Karen, who's 55, didn't share the sentiment. Karen has always been a bit off with me. It's clear she's not my biggest fan, and she's made no secret of it. Though she's never been outright nasty, her strategy has been more about avoidance and minimal conversation whenever I'm around. Last week, with Jake out of town on a business retreat, a total digital detox kind where phones and outside communication were off limits, I was riding solo at home. We all knew reaching him would be impossible for a few days. Then, on day 4 of his absence, Karen made an unexpected appearance at my doorstep, But she wasn't alone. She brought along 2 kids, both under 10, faces I had never seen before, who remained silent throughout their visit. Describing her visit as a mere drop by would be understating it. She persisted, consistently rang the doorbell until I reluctantly swung the door open. Karen stormed into my house, 2 silent kids in her wake, and exited just as furiously. I scrambled to intercept her, desperate for some explanation about this bizarre intrusion, but she was already peeling away in her car before I could utter a word. There I was, stranded with 2 kids who seemed to have taken a vow of silence around me. Attempts to coax out their identities or any hint of their parents were futile. They might as well have been mute in my presence. The thought to call CPS crossed my mind, but something held me back. A gut feeling that these children were somehow linked to my husband's family. Somehow, I couldn't place it, but both the kids looked familiar to me for some reason. While I was trying to figure out why they seemed related, that's why I didn't call CPS and instead chose to call my husband. I told the receptionist at their resort that I needed to speak to my husband urgently, and within a few minutes, I was on the phone with him, explaining everything that had happened. Jake dropped the bomb. He'd be back in just a few hours and clicked off. There I was, stuck in a silent standoff with these mystery kids until he could make his grand return. The retreat wasn't a million miles away, just a 4-hour drive from our place. Those hours stretched on forever, with the kids doing their best to pretend I was invisible while I kept my eyes glued to them, not daring to even think about a bathroom break. No way was I going to lose sight of them, not even for a second. The moment Jake walked through the door, I pulled him aside, spilling everything about how these kids were giving me the silent treatment, whispering secrets to each other but not breathing a word to me, careful enough to not let me overhear a word. This was very weird and secretive behavior from 2 kids, so I was feeling very paranoid and was on the verge of calling CPS, but Jake stopped me and told me that he called his mother over to explain, so whatever we needed to do, we could do after we confronted Karen. I've been trying to get through to Karen the entire time I was at home, but she'd been ignoring all my calls. However, when Jake had called her half an hour before he reached home, she'd answered and had told him that she'd come over and explain in a while. So, after around an hour, Karen arrived once more, and this time she had a lot of other people with her too. When Karen showed up, it was like she decided to bring the entire cavalry. My father-in-law, Jake's older brother, who's 32, and his wife included. I was baffled by her decision to turn our doorstep into a family reunion, especially with the added mystery of the kids. Everyone's faces mirrored my confusion. Jake, however, stepped up to the plate, confronting his mom directly about the kids, who by this point were practically shrinking into the furniture with anxiety. It was clear as day that Karen's presence was what was sending them into a state of panic. The moment Jake questioned his mom about who these kids were, she dropped a bombshell, claiming they were mine without a hint of hesitation. What was all I could manage. After all, Jake and I had been clear about our child-free stance, with the distant possibility of adoption down the line. This was a curveball I hadn't seen coming. That had always been the deal, so I was shocked at Karen's allegation, and so was the rest of the family. Jake told her to cut it out because obviously we thought that she was joking, but she doubled down on what she said and started off with some completely fictional story. Apparently, 3 weeks ago, she'd been contacted by some random man who told her that I was his ex-girlfriend. I've been dating this guy for years and even had 2 kids with him during the course of our relationship, but once I got married, I cut him off and abandoned those kids as well before ghosting him. Now that he'd found me after several years of stalking, he tried to contact me, but I just blocked him again, so he'd been left with no other option but to contact my family. Turns out, Karen was the grand architect behind this mess. She claimed the kids had been left with her by their supposed dad, who pegged me as the mom. Her goal, to expose me as a cheater and a liar in a dramatic family showdown. As she spun this wild tale, I was speechless, my jaw practically on the floor while she wove her elaborate web of deceit. After her tirade, Karen laid down her next bombshell to Jake, insisting that since these were allegedly my kids, it was now our responsibility to take them in and raise them, given their dad had apparently abandoned them. Jake, seeing right through her facade, outright rejected her claims and demanded she take the kids and leave, confident in his belief that she was fabricating the entire story. Despite Jake's firm stance, The rest of the family wasn't as quick to dismiss Karen's narrative, leaving us caught in a whirlwind of disbelief and family drama. They did think that my mother-in-law was telling the truth, Karen, and so insisted that we take care of them. Well, maybe they did know that Karen was lying, but just didn't want to take up the responsibility of raising two random kids, and so they were pushing them onto us. There was a lot of shouting and yelling during the argument that came next, and eventually, Jake told them that we'd keep the kids with us for just a day for their sake. But after that, if Karen didn't come and take them, then he'd call CPS. All of this time, the kids were in the room with us. But as soon as CPS was mentioned, they ran to another room and somehow managed to lock themselves in while screaming in terror that they didn't want anyone to come and take them away. Seizing the moment, my in-laws made a swift exit, leaving Jake and I to deal with the kids, who were understandably shaken by the whole ordeal. We spent the next 30 minutes doing our best to soothe their fears, reassuring them that no one was going to snatch them away. Gradually, they began to open up to us. A small victory evidenced by their willingness to communicate and the red tear-streaked eyes that greeted us when they finally felt safe enough to look at us. We managed to settle them into the guest room for the night, tucking them into bed before retreating to our own room, utterly drained by the day's chaos. That night, Jake and I barely exchanged words. The exhaustion was too profound, leaving us to fall into a restless sleep without unraveling the day's mysterious events. It wasn't until the next morning, after catching our breath, that we could finally sit down and contemplate our next steps concerning the kids. We couldn't take care of them forever because that had never been in the cards anyway, but we couldn't call CPS either because apparently they were terrified of that idea. While we were brainstorming, Jake said something about how it would help so much if there was some proof that Karen had brought the kids here. Finally, when he said that, I was reminded of the security footage from the cameras that I'd installed outside. In the panic and hubbub of the previous day, I completely forgotten about the security cameras and that I could actually use that footage to prove that Karen had brought the kids here. Honestly, the security cameras around our house had become more of a forgotten relic than a tool we actively used. It hadn't even crossed our minds to check them until Jake brought it up. With a sudden spark of remembrance, we scrambled to our laptop, eager to sift through the footage for any clues to this bewildering situation. What we discovered on playback was nothing short of shocking. The video captured Karen, cold and deliberate, exiting her vehicle with the two children in tow, forcefully leading them to our doorstep. It was then that the unexpected unfolded. One of the kids, the younger one, attempted a desperate dash for freedom, squirming to escape Karen's grasp. However, she quickly reasserted her control, not merely pulling him back but shaking him with alarming violence. The older child, witnessing his siblings' harsh treatment, stepped in, pleading for Karen to cease her actions. In response, without a moment's hesitation, Karen turned and delivered a sharp slap across his face. The footage laid bare a disturbing display of aggression, far removed from the misunderstanding we had hoped might explain the day's chaos. I gasped because the slap looked like it had hurt, and it finally made sense that they were cowering in fear when they saw her in the house once more when she came by to argue with us. Jake was just as shocked as I was, and we realized that the reason that the kids hadn't been speaking had probably also been because of Karen. She'd instructed them not to talk, and that's why they kept to themselves. We realized immediately that something fishy was going on and wanted to call the cops or CPS. But the kids' terrified faces when we mentioned them the previous day were haunting us, so we didn't. Instead, we called a friend of ours who was a cop and informed him about what was going on. He's the one who advised us to post the security footage on our social media. For one, it would help us prove that it was Karen who'd brought the kids along with her, and secondly, the kids were definitely not ours. But whoever's kids these were, they might be looking for them. Karen wasn't a kidnapper, and she definitely wouldn't have abducted two kids. If she'd taken these kids away from someone and they'd given them up, the revelation from the security footage hinted at a darker reality that the kids' actual parents were likely entangled in something dubious and were probably evading the law. In light of Karen's attempt to frame me, Jake and I felt we had no choice but to share the footage online, not out of expectation for a resolution, but to clear my name from the accusations Karen had orchestrated. We uploaded the video of Karen forcefully leading the kids to our door, and it wasn't long before our community reacted. My brother-in-law extended an apology, recognizing the gravity of Karen's actions, though Jake's father stayed silent, siding with Karen. Karen's only response was a threat to sue us for defamation unless we took down the video. A challenge we met head-on, refusing to be intimidated. Karen has yet to follow through on her legal threats, and in the meantime, the kids have settled in a bit, sharing their names but remaining tight-lipped about anything more personal. The silence from other family members lingered until yesterday when my father-in-law finally reached out. I had half expected an apology, but the call was anything but. But when we answered, he was screaming at us for ruining his marriage and that we were the reason he was going to have to get divorced at his age. Neither of us had any idea what he was talking about, so we called Jake's brother instead, who told us that after we posted that clip online, Karen and Jake's dad had been fighting like cats and dogs every single day, and things have finally come to a head yesterday when she and her husband had yet another fight, at the end of which Karen told him that she wanted to divorce. Now, she'd even left the house and gone somewhere else to stay for a while, but hadn't told anyone where she was. Now, my father-in-law was pissed at us for some reason because he thinks that us posting the footage is what led to all these fights. Update 1. Hey everyone, so big update here. We finally found out who these kids really are and why exactly my in-laws are getting divorced. It's crazy for Jake and I right now, and I'm hoping saying this out loud might help me make sense of things. Turns out, the kids are indeed related to Karen, but not in the way anyone expected. In a twist straight out of a soap opera, it was revealed that Karen had an affair early in her marriage, leading to a pregnancy. Following the birth, a paternity test confirmed the child was her affair partner's, not her husband's. Karen persuaded her husband to put the baby up for adoption under the guise that she couldn't handle raising a third child at nearly 30, with her having been 28 at the time. Karen's husband, torn, but ultimately acquiescing, agreed to the adoption, believing Karen's argument that as the primary caregiver, it wouldn't be fair to burden her with a child she wasn't prepared to raise. Behind his back, Karen facilitated the adoption of her daughter, born from the affair, when the baby was just 6 months old. Karen continued her affair until her lover passed away from a stroke 2 years prior, effectively deceiving her husband for over 28 years. All the while, she maintained contact with her daughter, the mother of the 2 children aged 5 and 7 left on our doorstep. That's also why the kids look so familiar, because they had the same dark hair and eyes that my mother-in-law and her daughter had also inherited from her. Her daughter had never been married and had both these kids with her boyfriend, but her boyfriend had dumped her about 2 months ago, and now she was struggling to make ends meet. Unfortunately, Karen's daughter had a drug problem, and so did her boyfriend, so her grandkids have grown up in fear of anything to do with the law and recognize the word, CPS, or cops, very well because of the fear they associated it with thanks to Karen's threats. Whenever she would visit her daughter, Karen would constantly threaten to call CPS on them and have their kids taken away. But her daughter and her boyfriend would beg her not to do anything of the sort and manage to evade it every time. They'd even train their kids to run to the other room and cry whenever she would say those words, which is something I witnessed personally the other day. However, after her breakup, her daughter's drug problem had become worse due to the grief, and she was barely functioning anymore. Karen's daughter was in dire straits, unable to care for herself or her children, and hadn't been to her job at the local grocery store for weeks, eventually leading to her termination. With no income and dwindling resources, Karen faced a grim reality. Her daughter and grandchildren were in a crisis. In a desperate move, Karen left the children with me and Jake and checked her daughter into rehab, a decision that forced her to reveal the long-concealed truth to her husband. She needed his financial support for her daughter's treatment, yet she had no funds of her own. The revelation sparked a fierce argument between Karen and her husband, during which harsh words were exchanged. Despite the conflict, Karen declared she would manage the rehab expenses without burdening him and announced her intention to divorce. In the aftermath, she took refuge with Jake's older brother, her whereabouts kept secret from us until now. She extracted a promise of silence from him, aiming to keep her estranged husband in the dark a little longer. Karen, now separated from her husband and living with her stepson, is said to be in a state of profound emotional turmoil, grappling with the consequences of her actions and the unraveling of her family's fabric. It's been almost 4 days since she's been living with them, and they've been lying to her dad because they don't want him to find out. Karen has told them the truth as well, which is how we found out because Jake's brother finally broke down today and ended up telling us the truth about the kids and even showed us pictures to prove it. My father-in-law has been miserable ever since Karen left, and Jake has been visiting him every day to make sure he's all right. The kids are still with me and they're doing a lot better, but still refuse to talk about their parents, which now I understand. It sucks for them, but I have decided to take care of them until their mother is out of rehab, or at least I have a better place to go to. Update 2. So, it's been 2 weeks since my original post, and my in-laws decided to get back together today. Officially, the divorce is off. Now, they made up a few days ago when Jake's dad went over to visit his oldest son to ask if they'd been in touch with Karen and found her there. They talked about everything, and Karen convinced him that she'd only loved the other guy, her former partner, in the initial years, but after that, her life had been all about her husband. She'd only been in touch with him because of their daughter and no other reason, and he believes her. He's decided to give her another chance and work on their marriage for real this time. Navigating this family saga leaves us in a peculiar spot, caught between concern and the realization that ultimately, these are not our burdens to bear. Jake is equally perplexed, grappling with the weight of familial ties versus the need for boundaries. At my urging, we've decided against confronting his parents about the unfolding drama. They are adults, after all, navigating their own complex journey. My feelings towards Karen remain unchanged. Distrust and disapproval color my perception of her. For the sake of our peace, Jake and I agree that minimal contact with her is best for now. The children, unexpectedly thrust into our lives, will soon leave our care. Jake's brother has stepped up to take them in, a decision prompted by my return to full-time work as a teacher. Despite the initial silence regarding their parents, the kids gradually warmed up to us, sharing bits and pieces of their world. Their chatter and laughter have filled our home, offering glimpses of comfort and safety we hope they felt in our presence as they prepare to leave. It's bittersweet. We didn't anticipate how much we'd grow to care for them, nor how much we'd miss their lively spirits. I trust Jake's brother. They're good people, but a little too naive for their own good. I've made them promise not to leave the kids alone around Karen, and they agree because the way she lost her temper with the kids that day she dropped them off at my place was scary to watch. Had their biological mother been around to take care of them, she probably would have called the cops on Karen for the way she'd been treating those kids. We've been trying to familiarize the kids with Jake's brother and his wife for a while before they move in with them, and it's going well so far, so we hope that it continues even after they move out. Update 3. Hey everyone, the kids have been living with my brother-in-law and his wife for a week now, and they're doing relatively well. They've started going to the public school nearby too and are a lot happier and more bubbly than when they first arrived. My sister-in-law was a stay-at-home wife before, so she's also quite happy with this new arrangement. Jake and I have been in no contact with Karen ever since the day she dropped the kids off at my place and accused me of being a cheater when she's been the actual cheater all along. We can forgive the cheating, but we cannot forgive the very intentional attempt to ruin my marriage and dump her grandkids onto me. She could have gone to my brother-in-law if she really cared about the kids, but she cared more about ruining my image in marriage, so she came to me first. I'm lucky that Jake is a trusting husband and a good man who didn't just believe his mother blindly while she was saying all those things about me. Our marriage is hanging by a thread, and honestly, it's a miracle we're still together. Jake's still talking to his dad, who's in turmoil over choosing to stick with Karen despite her cheating spree. Jake's torn up about it, wishing he could step in, but knowing it's not his place, especially since I'm dead set against stirring more drama. He's fuming over Karen's actions, labeling her as possibly the worst mom ever, a title she's earned by letting down all her kids as adults. Jake's itching for a showdown, but I'm putting my foot down. No confrontations as far as I'm concerned. Karen might as well be a ghost. I want nothing to do with her. No calls, no visits, no updates. She's cut off. She's a nasty piece of work who's tried to ruin my relationship with my husband and in-laws once already, and I'm not about to let her do that once again. My father-in-law has since apologized to me for not believing in me when Karen made up that story about me and for blaming Jake and me for posting the footage of Karen mistreating the children, but I don't buy it. I don't think someone can just change their mind overnight, and I don't want anything to do with him either. Jake can keep in touch with him, but I don't think I'll be attending any holiday parties hosted by my in-laws anytime soon. Update 4. So, it's been a little over 3 months, and my half-sister-in-law Karen's other daughter was finally released from rehab 2 weeks ago. The saga continues with my brother-in-law and his wife stepping up as foster parents to the kids. A setup that's looking like a long-term commitment. Why? Because Karen's other daughter, despite being the biological mom, isn't ready to take on the mantle of parenthood. And here's where it gets even more bizarre. She's shacking up with Karen and my father-in-law, turning their home into a living reminder of past infidelities. To me, the whole arrangement is unfathomable. I don't possess the monumental capacity for forgiveness that seems to run in their family, or perhaps I'm just too principled to overlook betrayal. The idea that this setup is somehow functional for them boggles my mind. As for us, we're maintaining our distance. A decision made easy by Karen's inexcusable actions. She's persona non grata in our lives, and we intend to keep it that way. She's tried several times to reach out to Jake again, but my husband loves me too much to even consider speaking to that woman again. But I love him for that. Jake's also been telling me that the kids are probably going to get adopted by his brother soon enough because they've grown too attached to the kids, and since their father doesn't want them anymore and their mother isn't capable of raising them, it'll probably be easier for them to get custody as well. No legal steps have been taken yet, but I'm crossing my fingers they secure custody of the kids soon. Honestly, it's the best outcome those kids could hope for given the circumstances. Now on to the next story. Story 4. She didn't want to go out with me but said yes anyway. Then I found her shady social media. I 26M, found her 28F, TikTok after we went on a date. This is honestly not something I expected to post about, but here's the thing. I have known this woman, 28F, for a while since we are in the same friend groups. She's a nice person, attractive, and honestly, I've always enjoyed my talks with her. A few weeks ago, I 26M, asked her out on a date. I figured if she says no, it's fine, but she actually agreed. We went on a date this past Saturday, and honestly, I thought it was awesome. We went out to dinner, had drinks, spent the rest of the night talking, and we even took a walk on a walking bridge over the town's lake. It's not a big one. I dropped her off and was elated. I absolutely loved the night. However, that night when I was scrolling through TikTok on my bed, a post from her, I didn't follow nor knew she had a TikTok, appeared on my For You page. Essentially, she said in the post, getting ready for a date. I really don't want to go. That was like a bucket of ice water being thrown on my head. I was so freaking happy, and I just found out she didn't even want to go on a date with me. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying she has to want it, but please let me know if that's the case. We don't need to go out. We can forget I even asked her out. But doing this on the internet, it made me self-conscious. Not sure if that's the right word. Now, I'm unsure about what to do. Should I tell her I saw this or just forget about it? Honestly, it really hurt me, and I'm not really sure I want to give this another try. I mean, she didn't want to go out with me in the first place, right? Update. Hello everyone. Some people have reached out to me through comments or chat asking for an update on the situation. Sadly, there isn't much to share at the moment, but I'll provide what I can. Please keep in mind that I won't be discussing this further, nor will I reply to comments. Thank you for your understanding. After last week's post, I read almost every comment, or at least most of them. I'm thankful to all those who commented and shared a bit of their own personal story. Some people mention that anxiety is normal and feeling like not going out is definitely common, suggesting that I shouldn't look too much into it. While I agree with their perspective and see no fault in not feeling like going out, what bothered me the most in this situation was having to post a TikTok for a significant audition. I'm a private person by nature, and even my social media accounts like Instagram have only a single post. I don't really like to overly share, nor do I want to be with someone who does. It's completely fine to share whatever you want. I just don't want to be a part of it. So I decided not to contact her. I chose to pretend I had never seen the post and let things be. I understand a lot of people might think this isn't the best choice, but I feel it is the best course for both of us. Last Thursday, a few friends who also happened to know her invited me for drinks. We went to a bar, and while we were eating and enjoying our drinks, a mutual friend asked me how my date went, as our circle was aware that we were going on a date. I didn't want to say much, so I just replied, "Oh, it was good, but I don't think we clicked." This friend followed it by saying, "We figured," which made me feel rather uneasy. When I asked what he was talking about, he hesitated but eventually said that they had seen a TikTok post from her about not wanting to go out. At this point, I didn't really know what to say. This situation is just incredibly messy for me, but there's not much I can do about it. Still, I wasn't going to mention it, nor did I try to look up if there was any update on her part. In fact, I deleted TikTok after that incident. It just wasn't doing me any good. Nevertheless, this past Saturday, she sent me a text. She mentioned that she enjoyed our date and asked if I wanted to go out again. I understand that she clearly stated that she enjoyed our time together. However, I don't want to be with someone who exposes so much of their personal life. It's not something that would be good for me. So, I decided to tell her the truth and sent a text explaining that while I absolutely enjoyed our date, her company, and that I thought she was an amazing woman, her post from the night of our date came across my For You page on TikTok, and it made me feel really self-conscious. While I understand that she enjoyed the date, contrary to what she felt at the time of the post, I didn't feel comfortable going out with someone who had such a high level of exposure online. I wished her the best and expressed hope that she finds someone whose lifestyle aligns with hers. She has read the message and left me on read ever since. I don't think she will reply, and I don't think we'll have a lot of social interactions going forward. I'm sorry if this wasn't the update you guys were expecting, but yeah, sadly, that's what the situation became. Anyhow, wish everyone a good day. Now on to the next story. Story 5. Husband's ex-wife and daughter came back for inheritance of his family home after we made a will, but we uncovered the worst truth in court. I, 45F, have been married to my husband Michael, 50M, for the last 10 years. We were both in our early 30s when we first crossed paths at a local art gallery. Both of us were admiring the same painting and struck up a conversation. It was like an instant connection, you know? He asked me out on a date, and as we started to know more about each other, it felt like I had known him forever. I am the oldest of 3 children in my family. Money was always tight for us, but manageable. We could afford to go for fast food only if it was our birthday. My dad taught us very early on to work hard for what we wanted to achieve in our lives. I studied hard and put myself through college. I did a few modeling gigs on the side, so by the time I graduated college, I had no debt. I had worked my way through the company and was currently working as a junior associate. Michael, on the other hand, had a completely opposite background. His family was financially better off than ours. His dad had a good job with a high salary and social security, so they never had to stress about money. Michael's parents could afford to cover all his college expenses. Thanks to his dad's influential position at his company, Michael got an internship there. From there, he worked hard to build his own path in the company through dedication and effort. Although Michael and I came from 2 different worlds, we share the same passions for art and music. This is what made us fall in love with each other. Michael had a 17-year-old daughter from his previous marriage. His daughter Candace never really liked me from the beginning. She never seemed to warm up to me and often refused to engage with me whenever we met. It felt like she somehow held me responsible for her parents not being together, even though I met Michael long after his divorce was completed with his ex-wife. I understood her feelings and tried to give her the space she needed to come to terms with our relationship. Just for context, Michael and his ex-wife Amelia were married for only 3 years. They were college sweethearts, so they decided to get married. But when they did, everything changed for the worse. She was a stay-at-home mother while Michael worked hard to bring in the money. One day, Michael returned home from a work trip earlier than planned, only to discover her in bed with his best friend Tom. This was an incredibly difficult time for Michael as he lost the 2 most important people in his life on the same day. The betrayal by Amelia had left him shattered. In the aftermath, he made the painful decision to file for divorce. The divorce proceedings between Michael and Amelia were painfully bitter, primarily because Amelia was determined to retain ownership of their house, even though it belonged to Michael. The battles didn't just end with the property. They extended into a challenging custody dispute over Candace as well. Due to Amelia's infidelity during their marriage, the judge ultimately didn't grant her ownership of the house but did grant both parents custody, ensuring that Candace would continue to have a connection with both of them. Amelia's anger over not acquiring the property festered, and over the years, she manipulated Candace's feelings, turning her against her father. Meanwhile, Michael chose not to disclose his ex-wife's infidelity to their daughter, attempting to shield her from the painful details of their past. I found out about all this when we first started dating each other. Michael wanted to be completely honest with me about his past, and I really appreciated that. Once Michael had invited Candace to join us on a trip to Africa, hoping it would provide an opportunity for us to bond. I was optimistic and thought it could be a turning point for our relationship. Unfortunately, it didn't quite go as planned. During the trip, Candace seemed irritated at me and often erupted into sudden, unprovoked anger if I got too close to Michael. She would lash out using hurtful words like gold digger. Michael was quick to admonish her for her behavior, but she would just smirk at me, making it clear that she wasn't ready to accept me into her life. I knew the situation with his ex-wife and daughter was complicated, but our love for each other was strong, and I was willing to navigate these challenges with him. After a whirlwind romance, we got married. It was a small, intimate ceremony with just our closest friends and family. We were excited about the life we were going to build together. Amelia and Candace never attended our wedding, despite our invitation. Our marriage was going great initially. We traveled the world while we both continued with our jobs. I was deeply passionate about my career, and I had no intention of giving it up. Meanwhile, Amelia was living together with Tom after their divorce. Candace had her own apartment thanks to Michael's financial support, and she was working as a social media executive in a reputed company. 3 years into our marriage, we were overjoyed to welcome our son. However, the pregnancy had been tough on me, and it was made even harder whenever Candace came to visit. She would make cruel, unsolicited comments about my weight and appearance whenever Michael wasn't around us. She would remark how he would leave me eventually, now that I am a fat cow. This deeply troubled me, and after I shared my concerns with Michael, he decided that Candace would no longer visit our home. They began meeting at cafes instead to avoid any further distress from me. When our son Nick was born, we were beyond happy. Despite becoming a parent, I was determined to keep working, so we decided to hire a babysitter to help us care for him when my maternity leave ended. I eagerly returned to my job, even though we were in a stable and comfortable place in our lives. I cherished my financial independence and the ability to continue pursuing my career. The Candace had issues with me before. They seemed to intensify after Nick came into our lives. At family events, which we would sometimes organize, she would target Nick, attempting to bully him, which left our son in tears and seeking our help. While I understood her hate towards me, I couldn't stand by and allow her to take her anger out on Nick, our innocent little boy. I banned her from ever coming to our house again. We also stopped hosting family events at our house since then. Now, coming on to the issue at hand, as we are getting older, John and I realized the importance of planning for the future. We decided to create a will to ensure our affairs were in order. Given that JN had already provided a flat for Candace, he designated me and our son as the inheritors of our family home. His remaining assets, which were the money and his personal savings account, would go to Candace. Meanwhile, I had my own assets, which I intended to leave to my son, ensuring that he would be well taken care of throughout his life. We both felt this was the right decision to secure our family's future and provide for Nick as he grew up. When Amelia and Candace got wind of our will, all hell broke loose. I am not sure if Michael mentioned it by mistake or his parents did, but they were not happy at all. Amelia called Michael demanding that they deserved to have the house as she was married to him first, but he firmly stood his ground. He reiterated that he had always provided for Candace, from her child support to her college expenses to buying her an apartment. He told her that he would ensure that Candace is secured in the future, but he was going to leave the property to our son. This seemed to anger her even further, and Amelia sent me a long text message where she called me every name in the book. I showed Michael the message, who asked me to not engage with her further and block her immediately. The following day, Candace showed up at our doorstep, clearly upset. I knew she was here to talk about the will with us. I didn't want her to create a scene in front of our son, so I quickly arranged for my parents to pick him up. With just the 3 of us left, Candace made her intentions known. She insisted that my son and I should give up the property because, as the firstborn of Michael, she believed she deserved the house. Despite feeling irritated, I remained silent and looked to Michael to handle the situation. He explained to Candace that he had always provided her with everything she needed in life. He assured her that he would be leaving her his savings and that he also had a commitment to secure M and our son's future since he was married to me. Leaving the family property to us was his way of ensuring our well-being. Candace again shifted her focus onto me and insisted that she expected me to do the right thing. I calmly expressed my support for my husband's decision, which only seemed to infuriate her. She raised her voice and threatened to take me to court. At this point, I didn't want to escalate the situation any further, and I requested that she leave us alone. As anticipated, in a few weeks, I received a legal notice informing me that both Candace and Amelia were taking me to court over the property. Their accusations included the claim that I married Michael for his money and had manipulated him into taking away their family property. Michael and I consulted our lawyer, and we were assured that Candace and Amelia didn't have strong legal grounds to support their claims. However, despite the legal advice, I couldn't shake my worries, particularly because I didn't want our son to experience the drama surrounding this family dispute. As the court date approached, the tension in our household grew. In court, Amelia's lawyer was relentless in their efforts to assert that Michael needed to prioritize his first child, Candace, above all else. Their argument centered on pushing for a full-blown trial to determine the property's ownership. Since we lived in Colorado, the legal system required us to go through a jury trial, which only added to the complexity of the situation. The looming court trial had both Michael and me on edge, especially since Amelia's lawyer was resorting to some dirty tactics, digging up our past to make their case in court. Our own lawyer was doing his best, but the situation was undeniably stressful. During this time, out of the blue, we received an unexpected call from Tom, who insisted on meeting us at home. Since the painful discovery of Tom's involvement with Amelia, Michael had cut off all ties with his once best friend and didn't want to meet him. I convinced him to hear Tom out, just in case it would help us resolve this dispute sooner. When Tom came over to our house, we were half expecting it to be another one of the opposing lawyers' ploys to undermine our case. However, to our surprise, Tom was here with a different intention to talk. He revealed that he was here to make a confession about something that would be incredibly difficult for Michael to hear. Michael sat motionless as Tom revealed that Amelia had been seeing him behind Michael's back for a very long time, and they had been involved romantically even before Amelia became pregnant. I held my breath as Tom continued disclosing a bombshell that none of us had expected. Apparently, when Amelia got pregnant, she confided in him that she believed the child was actually his. However, because Michael was financially more stable, she had chosen to keep the truth hidden and remained in the marriage. Tom had pleaded with her to reveal the real father to Michael, but she had consistently refused to do so. I couldn't believe how Amelia could manage to keep this a secret for so long. The audacity she had for fighting over the property while keeping this monumental secret from Michael was mind-boggling. How had she managed to maintain this charade for so many years, all while causing such turmoil within our family? Tom explained that he had kept silent all these years because he believed that Amelia truly loved him. However, witnessing the pain that we were going through because of the court trial, he finally saw her for who she really was. He started weeping, asking Michael to forgive him. Michael, still in a state of shock, sat there silently. I was filled with anger and frustration, especially seeing the emotional turmoil that my husband was going through. This man believed his whole life that Candace was his daughter, and now he was being told that it was all a lie. I had chosen to remain silent in the past whenever Amelia and Candace were rude to me, as I wanted to maintain a cordial relationship with them. However, with the truth now out in the open, there was no point in continuing the charade. I promptly contacted our lawyer and relayed the confession Tom had made. Our lawyer informed us that for our statements to be held in court, we would need to provide concrete evidence, such as a DNA test. So we decided to invite Candace over for dinner, using the pretense of wanting to meet her. Our plan was to discreetly collect a glass or a spoon from her for a test, which would help strengthen our case. Candace, though surprised, agreed to come over. Her demeanor was as rude as ever, and she continued to belittle me and my son. She remained confident that she and her mother would win the case, taunting me that I would be losing everything soon. I chose to ignore her comments, hoping that this would be the last time we would need to endure such behavior. After she left, we immediately reached out to our lawyer so he could collect Candace's cup for a DNA test. On the day we were scheduled to appear in court, we received the news that Tom's confession was accurate. Candace was indeed his daughter. As I let out a sigh of relief, I couldn't help but feel empathy for my husband, who had been dragged into this turmoil because of his ex-wife's lies and manipulation. I informed the lawyer that I was ready to take the stand that day and share our side of the story in court. My lawyer agreed, as this would be the best course of action for us to reveal the truth. As I took the stand, I felt a mix of emotions. Anger at Amelia for her deceit, sympathy for Michael, and determination to protect our family's rights. Taking the stand in front of the jury, I braced myself and began answering our lawyer's questions. We delved into my past, my career, and the fact that I never gave up on my job even after we got married. I went on to recount the emotional torment, taunts, and abuse I had endured from both Amelia and Candace over the years. We presented screenshots as proof of my story. I told the jury that Candace never accepted my presence from the very beginning and had even refused to attend our wedding. Since we had our son, she had been verbally abusive towards him as well. Then I revealed Tom's confession in front of the jury. I spoke about how we found out who Candace's real father was and the dirty secret that Amelia had kept hidden from everyone for so long. Candace looked at me in disbelief, and I watched her exchange angry whispers with her lawyer. Our lawyer then showed everyone the DNA result, which proved what I had just said. I looked at Amelia's face in satisfaction as she realized she couldn't escape the truth of her past anymore. Candace, on the other hand, looked shocked, as if her world was crumbling, just as ours had when we first learned the news. The emotions in the courtroom were raw. Now that everything was out in the open, there were no grounds for Amelia and Candace to stand on. Amelia looked defeated, and Candace, who had been so sure of her victory, was now grappling with the fallout of her mother's actions. There was no case left for their lawyer to fight about anymore. Fortunately, it didn't take long for the jury to decide and come back with a verdict. The judge announced the verdict, where we were awarded the inheritance of our family home, just as Michael had always wanted. The jury acknowledged that Candace and Amelia had no legitimate claim to it. Since the court decision, for the past couple of days, we have been receiving mixed reactions from our close family and friends. Although a majority of them understand our situation and agree that what we did was right, a few seem to think that it was cruel for us to reveal the truth and shatter Candace's life. So, here I am on Reddit, asking for your thoughts. Do you think I was TA for refusing to part with our property with our stepdaughter and eventually revealing everything in court, and not to her personally? Update 1. It's been 3 days since my last update, and I have read all your comments and advice. Many of you seem to believe that Candace might have already known about her mother's lies, which is impossible, as I saw the way her face fell when we revealed the DNA test in court. Winning the court trial has lifted a huge weight off my shoulders. I'm choosing not to dwell on the negative relatives who believe we did something wrong. We didn't choose to be dragged into court by Amelia and Candace. We just revealed the truth. I no longer have to worry about my future, and I'm content with the outcome. However, my main concern these days is my husband, Michael. He is still reeling from the shock of learning the truth about Candace's birth father. His world has been turned upside down. He hasn't been able to eat or sleep very well since finding out that she isn't really his daughter. I can't imagine the pain he must be going through to accept the truth. Amelia put him through hell when they got divorced. Now that we knew Tom was her father instead, he just didn't know how to handle that information. Tom had not only slept with his ex-wife but was also the birth father of his first child. I have suggested Michael go for therapy, as he needs to talk to someone professional who can help him navigate this situation. I have booked his appointment and he starts next week. Update 2. It's been 1 month since my last update, and we have managed to move on from this situation to a certain extent. As I mentioned before, my husband has been going to therapy regularly. I can see him getting better, but it's going to take time for him to fully recover. Unexpectedly, Last week, Candace reached out to us. We honestly didn't think she'd ever want to talk to us after everything that happened. She called to say she was sorry for what we've been through. I wasn't sure if her apology was genuine or if she was just upset about her mother's actions, but I didn't press the issue. Candace shared how she'd always been jealous of me, thinking I had taken her father away. She admitted to hating me, something I already knew. She believed that her father was the one who had cheated on her mother. However, during the court proceedings, when the truth came out that it was actually Amelia who had cheated, she realized she'd been living a lie her whole life. She begged Michael not to stop being a part of her life, and he reassured her that he'd always be her father, no matter who her birth father was. This brought her to tears, and it seemed like she needed that confirmation all along. Candace also apologized to me for what she'd put me through and hoped I'd forgive her one day. I didn't want to pretend everything was okay between us because it wasn't, and it would take time before I could be in the same room as her. Lately, I've been focusing on our family and my son. I couldn't spend much time with him during the court trial, so I'm planning a secret family vacation to take some time off and celebrate. Hopefully, this getaway will help us relax and recharge. I'll provide another update if something interesting happens. Update 3. After 3 months of no contact, Amelia showed up at our doorstep. I was torn about letting her in, but I was worried about the neighbors overhearing any potential shouting, as she'd done that before. Reluctantly, we allowed her in, but we made it clear that any outbursts would lead to a call to the police. Amelia explained that Tom had decided to leave her and asked her to move out of his house by the end of the month. She was in tears as she revealed that he didn't want to marry her anymore after what he saw Michael and me go through. With nowhere to go, she wanted to move in with Candace, even though Candace strongly opposed the idea. We learned that since the trial, Candace had cut off all contact with her mother, accusing her of manipulating her. Amelia was only here because she wanted us to talk to Candace regarding the situation. She wanted us to convince Candace about letting her mother move in. Before I could say something, I witnessed my husband lose his temper for the first time. He firmly told Amelia that he had purchased the apartment for Candace only, hence it was Candace's decision whether she could live with her. He expressed how she never even bothered to apologize after cheating on him all those years and now expected us to help her out. He told her that he was glad Tom had seen the truth and was leaving her. Amelia tried to justify her lies, saying that she feared being kicked out of the house while she was pregnant. Had she revealed the truth earlier to Michael? I couldn't listen to her excuses any longer, so I asked her to leave. I felt we had given her a fair chance to explain herself, and there was no point in prolonging the conversation. After Amelia departed, Michael reached out to Candace to warn her about the possibility of her mother forcing her to let her stay in the apartment. He emphasized that if she allowed it, there would be no way to make Amelia leave. Candace assured him that she had no intention of allowing that. She planned to change the locks to prevent Amelia from entering and would inform her mother that she was unwelcome. As for me, I've had my fill of this drama lately. I've been discussing with Michael the idea of selling our family home and relocating to another state to escape this turmoil. I had emphasized that for the sake of our son and our marriage, we needed to seriously consider this move. Although it is a tough decision, Michael has come to accept it, particularly since Amelia's unannounced visit demonstrated that we need to put some distance between us and her. Given the uncertainty of whether she will ever leave us in peace, moving out of the city seems like the best choice. Michael's job can be done remotely, and I'm open to starting fresh at a new company if it means finding happiness away from these toxic people. We will begin the process of selling our family home next month, and hopefully by the end of this year we will be starting fresh in a new place. It is time for us to turn the page on this chapter of our lives and begin a new one. Now on to the next story. Story 6. My wife cheated on me with her 26-year-old yoga instructor, so I plotted my revenge, but my plans led to an unbelievable twist of fate. I, 34M, never thought I'd be writing a post like this. Margaret, 32F, and I have been married for 8 years, together for 12. We met during our sophomore year of college. I was this quiet, nerdy computer science major, and she was a vivacious art history student. We were paired up for a group project in a general education class, and despite our differences, we hit it off immediately. Margaret came from a wealthy family in New York. Her parents were high-powered lawyers who always pushed her to follow in their footsteps, but Margaret had other ideas. She wanted to pursue her passion for art, much to her parents' disappointment. I admired her courage to follow her dreams despite the pressure. My background was quite different. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, raised by a single mom who worked 2 jobs to make ends meet. I got into college on a scholarship and was determined to make something of myself. Margaret and I bonded over our shared desire to forge our own paths in life. After graduation, we both landed jobs in Seattle's booming tech industry. I started as a software developer at a startup, while Margaret got a job managing social media for a trendy art gallery. We were young, in love, and excited about building a life together in a new city. We got married 2 years after moving to Seattle. It was a small, intimate ceremony, just close friends and family. Margaret's parents didn't approve of her marrying a small-town nobody. Their words, so they didn't attend. It hurt Margaret deeply, but she put on a brave face. I promised her that day that I'd always be there for her, that we'd create our own family. The first few years of our marriage were amazing. We both advanced in our careers, bought a cozy apartment in a hip neighborhood, and traveled whenever we could. We decided early on that we didn't want kids. Instead, we focused on our relationship and personal growth. Margaret got into yoga about 3 years ago. She said it helped her deal with the stress of her job, which had become more demanding as she climbed the corporate ladder. I was supportive, happy that she found something she enjoyed. I even tried it a few times myself, but quickly realized I wasn't cut out for it. I preferred to spend my free time on photography, a hobby I'd picked up in college. Everything seemed perfect. We had good jobs, a nice home, shared interests, and a strong relationship, or so I thought. About 6 months ago, Margaret started going to a new yoga studio closer to our house. She was really excited about it, saying the classes were more challenging and the instructor was great. I was happy for her, glad she found something she enjoyed so much. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. She started spending more time at the studio, sometimes going for extra classes or workshops. She'd come home later than usual, always with some excuse about traffic or grabbing a smoothie with her yoga friends. I didn't think much of it at the time. I trusted her completely. Last month, I decided to surprise Margaret by picking her up after her yoga class. I had just finished a big project at work and thought we could celebrate with a nice dinner. I got to the studio a bit early and waited in the parking lot. That's when I saw them. Margaret walked out with this young, fit guy. He had the typical yoga instructor look. Man bun, tattoos, the works. They were laughing about something, and then, right there in the parking lot, they kissed. It wasn't a friendly peck on the cheek. It was a full-on, passionate kiss. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. I just sat there, frozen, watching my wife of 8 years make out with some guy in a parking lot. After what felt like an eternity, they finally broke apart. Margaret got into her car and drove off, completely oblivious to my presence. I didn't confront her that night. Couldn't. I was too shocked, too hurt. I made up some excuse about working late and stayed at a hotel. The next few days were a blur. I went through the motions at work, barely able to focus on anything. At home, I tried to act normal, but I could feel the tension building. Finally, after a week of this torture, I confronted Margaret. I told her what I saw and asked her to explain. She broke down immediately, crying and begging for forgiveness. She said it was a mistake, that it didn't mean anything. She swore it was just a physical thing, that she still loved me. I asked her how long it had been going on. 6 months, she said. 6 months. Half of our marriage had been a lie. I felt sick. She tried to explain, saying she felt neglected because I'd been working long hours on my latest project. She said the yoga instructor, Donald, made her feel desirable and young again. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Had she forgotten all the times I'd supported her career, even when it meant sacrificing my own opportunities? Had she forgotten the trips we took, the life we built together? I've been staying at a friend's place for the past week, trying to figure out what to do. Margaret keeps calling and texting, begging me to come home so we can work things out, but I don't know if I can ever trust her again. The thing is, I'm not just hurt. I'm angry. I want her to feel the pain she's caused me. I want her to understand what it's like to have your world shattered in an instant. I've been thinking about ways to get back at her, to make her suffer like I'm suffering. I know it's probably not healthy, but I can't help it. I keep imagining ways to ruin her life, like she's ruined mine. Maybe I could expose her affair at work. She's always been so concerned about her professional image. Or tell all our friends and family what she did. Part of me even wants to go after Donald, make him pay for messing with a married woman. I know I should probably just file for divorce and move on, but the thought of her getting away with this without any consequences makes my blood boil. I want justice or maybe just revenge. I keep thinking about our wedding day, how happy and in love we were. I remember promising to always be there for her, to be her family. Now I feel like a fool for believing in those promises. So Reddit, what do you think? Am I crazy for wanting to get back at her? Or is it normal to feel this way after being betrayed? Any advice on how to move forward would be appreciated. I feel lost and alone, and I don't know what to do next. Edit. Thanks for all the responses. I'm reading through them and trying to process everything. To those asking why I haven't filed for divorce yet, I'm working on it. I've contacted a lawyer, and I'm gathering all the necessary documents. I just need some time to get my head straight before I make any big moves. Update 1. It's been about a month since my last post, and a lot has happened. First off, I want to thank everyone for their advice and support. It really helped me get through some dark days. I decided not to go through with any elaborate revenge plans. As tempting as it was, I realized it would probably just make me feel worse in the long run. Instead, I've been focusing on taking care of myself and preparing for the divorce. I moved out of our shared apartment and found a small place of my own. It's not much, but it's mine, and it's free from all the painful memories of my life with Margaret. I've been throwing myself into work and spending more time on my photography hobby. It helps keep my mind off things. As for Margaret, she's been relentless in her attempts to reconcile. She's shown up at my workplace, sent countless messages, and even tried to get our mutual friends to intervene on her behalf. It's exhausting, to be honest. The worst part was when she showed up at my new place. I still don't know how she found out where I live. She was crying, saying she'd do anything to make it work. She even suggested couples therapy. I told her it was too late for that and asked her to leave. She refused, so I had to threaten to call the police before she finally left. I've started the divorce proceedings. My lawyer says it should be relatively straightforward since we don't have kids or many shared assets. Still, it's a painful process, dismantling the life we built together. One thing that's been particularly difficult is dealing with our friends and family. Most of them didn't know about the affair, and Margaret had been spinning a story about us just going through a rough patch. I finally decided to set the record straight. I didn't go into all the sordid details, but I made it clear that Margaret had been unfaithful and that our marriage was over because of her actions. The reactions have been mixed. Some friends have been incredibly supportive, offering help and a listening ear. Others seem uncomfortable with the whole situation and have distanced themselves. Margaret's family, unsurprisingly, has taken her side and has been quite hostile towards me. Her father even called to berate me for throwing away a good thing. It was all I could do not to laugh bitterly at the irony. My mom has been my rock through all of this. She flew out from Ohio to stay with me for a week, helping me get settled into my new place and just being there for me. We had a lot of long talks about relationships, trust, and moving forward. She shared some things about her own past that I never knew, including why she and my dad split up. It gave me a new appreciation for everything she went through raising me on her own. As for Donald, the yoga instructor, I haven't done anything about him. Part of me still wants to confront him, to make him face what he's done. But I know it's not worth it. He's not the one who made vows to me. Margaret is the one who betrayed me, and she's the one I'm cutting out of my life. There have been moments of weakness where I've considered giving Margaret another chance. The loneliness can be overwhelming at times, and there's a part of me that misses the life we had. But then I remember the look on her face when I confronted her about the affair, and I know I can never trust her again. I've been trying to keep busy to avoid dwelling on things too much. I signed up for a local photography class, hoping to improve my skills and maybe meet some new people. It's been good to focus on something creative and challenging. Work has been both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, it's a welcome distraction. On the other, it's hard to concentrate sometimes when my mind keeps wandering back to Margaret and the affair. My boss has been understanding, thankfully. I finally told him what was going on, and he's been great about giving me some flexibility with my hours. For now, I'm taking it one day at a time. Some days are better than others. I'm trying to focus on the future and rebuild my life. It's not easy, but I know it's necessary. I've been thinking a lot about what I want for my future. Before all this happened, Margaret and I had been talking about starting our own business together. Now I'm wondering if I should pursue that dream on my own. It's scary to think about, but also exciting. I'll update again when there are significant developments in the divorce proceedings or if anything major happens. Thanks again for all your support, Reddit. It means more than you know. Update 2. It's been another couple of months, and I wanted to give you all an update on my situation. The divorce is moving forward, albeit slower than I'd like. There have been some complications with dividing our assets, particularly our shared investment portfolio. Margaret's lawyer is pushing for a larger share, claiming that her career sacrifices early in our marriage entitle her to more. It's frustrating, but my lawyer assures me we have a strong case. In the meantime, I've been trying to focus on personal growth. I joined a gym and started working out regularly. It's been great for managing stress and helps me sleep better at night. I've also been seeing a therapist to work through my trust issues and anger. It's not easy, but I'm slowly starting to feel like myself again. Work has been a welcome distraction. I threw myself into a big project, and it's paying off. My boss noticed my extra efforts and hinted at a possible promotion in the near future. It's nice to have something positive to focus on. As for Margaret, she's finally stopped trying to contact me directly. However, she's now using our mutual friends as intermediaries. This puts some of our friendships in an awkward position. A few friends have told me that Margaret's been painting herself as the victim, claiming that I'm being unreasonable by not giving her a second chance. It's infuriating, but I'm trying not to let it get to me. I ran into Donald, the yoga instructor, at a local coffee shop last week. It was incredibly awkward. He tried to apologize, saying he didn't know Margaret was married. I didn't buy it for a second. I told him to save his apologies and walked out. It shook me up more than I'd like to admit, but I'm proud of myself for not losing my cool. On a more positive note, I've started dating again. Nothing serious, just casual coffee meetups and such. It's been nice to connect with new people who don't know my history. It's helping me remember that there's life after Margaret. The hardest part lately has been dealing with the holidays. This will be the first Thanksgiving and Christmas I've spent alone in nearly a decade. My family has invited me to join them, but the thought of all the pitying looks and awkward conversations is almost worse than being alone. I'm considering taking a solo trip instead, maybe do some photography in a national park. I've been thinking a lot about the future lately. Before all this happened, Margaret and I had talked about starting our own tech company. Now I'm considering pursuing that dream on my own. It's scary, but also exciting. I've been working on a business plan in my free time, and I'm starting to think it might actually be viable. That's all for now. I'll update again when the divorce is finalized or if anything significant happens. Thanks again for all your support, Reddit. It's been a huge help during this difficult time. Update 3. Hello everyone. It's been about 6 months since my last update, and I wanted to share some final thoughts on this chapter of my life. The divorce was finalized last month. It was a long and draining process, but it's finally over. In the end, we settled on a fairly equal division of assets. Margaret got to keep the apartment and I got a larger share of our investments. It's not ideal, but I'm just glad it's done. I've moved to a new city for work. The promotion I mentioned in my last update came through, but it required relocation. At first, I was hesitant about such a big change, but now I see it as a fresh start. New job, new city, new life. I haven't spoken to Margaret since the divorce was finalized. Last I heard, she's still with Donald. They moved in together shortly after our divorce was settled. It stung at first, but I'm surprised to find I don't really care anymore. They're just two people I used to know. My photography hobby has turned into something more serious. I've had a few of my photos published in a local magazine, and I'm working on putting together an exhibition. It's exciting to have a creative outlet that's just for me. Dating is still casual, but I'm enjoying meeting new people without the pressure of a serious relationship. I'm not ready for that yet, but I'm open to the possibility in the future. The business idea I mentioned in my last update is slowly becoming a reality. I've been working on it in my spare time, and I recently pitched it to a few potential investors. They seemed interested, so who knows, maybe in a year or two, I'll be running my own company. My relationship with my mom has gotten even stronger through all of this. We talk almost every day now, and she's planning to visit me in my new city next month. It's nice to have that solid family support. I still have moments where I think about Margaret and our life together. Sometimes I miss the good times we had, but then I remember the betrayal, the lies, and I know I made the right decision. I'm building a new life now, one that's entirely my own. To anyone going through something similar, hang in there. It gets better. Focus on yourself, surround yourself with supportive people, and don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. This will be my final update on this situation. Thank you all for your support and advice throughout this journey. This meant more than you know. Now on to the next story. Story 7. Greedy stepmom stole my inheritance and my house, so I knew her career in life. By Felicia. Let's jump right in. My mom died giving birth to me, so I never knew her. She looks pretty in pictures. Dad says she was a good woman, and I believe him. He was a good dad and raised me by himself with the help of my aunt until I was 11. My aunt has her own kids that are a few years older than me, but we were all friends growing up and still are, which includes my aunt. Like my mom, my aunt is a good woman. My dad worked crazy long hours to provide for me. He owned his own convenience store. He was manager and cashier for most of the day and had one other employee as his helper. I was just a kid, but I would also help at the store after school, sweeping and stocking shelves for the longest time. My dad's helper was a Chinese guy, but then he had to quit because he had to take care of his ailing parents in China. So my dad replaced him with a white guy who did okay for a while, but then he graduated college and moved on. Finally, my dad hired a Chinese woman to be his helper, and this woman would eventually become his second wife and my stepmom. I will call her Barbara, though of course her name isn't actually Barbara. Barbara was only 15 years older than me, so she was a lot younger than my dad, who was 44, and she was like 26. She also didn't speak Chinese in the same dialect at first, which was inconvenient for our convenience store because we lived in a Chinese part of town where most of the customers were Chinese Mandarin, and only once in a while would black people come in. So her English wasn't such an advantage. Barbara was nice to me at first, so I thought she was a good person. I was not yet 12 when they got married and she moved into our house. From what I know about her, her family is quite wealthy in China, and they paid for a nice wedding and they all came to America for it. My dad was the sort of guy never to let anyone pay his way, though, so he kept on working like a maniac every day. Once they got married, Barbara changed, at least towards me. She was no longer big sis like she tried to portray herself when she and my dad were dating, where she treated me as a peer, but now she was super strict and controlling. She no longer let me help out around the shop like before. It's not like Cinderella where the mom would force the kid to do all this work, but she did tend to isolate me from my father over the next few years. She convinced my dad to sponsor all sorts of her relatives and friends to come over from China to live in America. He would set these people up with businesses because, even though my dad wasn't rich, he was very bright and knew how to make money. They would open little restaurants, dry cleaners, cell phone repair shops, things like that. Pretty much all the little foreign mom and pop shops you see in any small town. My dad helped make those things, except the owners were Chinese guys. When I was 17, my dad developed lung cancer due to smoking heavily ever since he was 13. He died only 2 years later at only 52. When I was a kid, I always had in mind to one day take over my dad's store when he retired. Now that I was 19, I was still too young to sell liquor, but I surely thought Barbara would let me work in the store now that my dad was gone. No such luck. She had one of her adult cousins take over the store, and the guy hired only his own friends and family to work in it. So the store my dad built from nothing was no longer part of my life. Barbara also had my dad fix his will so that she got almost all of his money, which, again, although he wasn't Bill Gates rich, was several hundreds of thousands of dollars. I didn't really care about the money. Barbara can have it, but it still sucks. He got all his money, and her family is already rich. I think she was just using my dad to transport her clan from China to America, but that's just my theory. All the money in the world cannot pay to bring my dad back, and I'd rather have that than cash, but I digress. However, after saying that, I will admit my dad set aside a small trust for me that was enough to put me through junior college. Also, the minute I turned 18, Barbara threw me out of the house my dad bought and paid for with his hard work. "This is not a place for you. You go now. Bye-bye," she said. She owned it because she was his wife, and now that my dad was dead, Barbara could move her new boyfriend into the house in his place. Her new boyfriend was a big, fat scumbag from Taiwan who, from what I hear, was a big shot mobster in his home country. But here in America, he just played mahjong all day and lived off his wife's money in my dad's house. Honestly, I think he was hanging out in America to avoid gang trouble in Asia. Also, I think my stepmom got with him because he has connections in China and Taiwan, and maybe some fraud is going on. Before I got kicked out of my dad's house, my stepmom used my dad's money to invest in a couple of apartment buildings. I eventually heard that she was renting out rooms to various traffickers, and basically, there were bordellos. This was all stuff I found out later, along with the news that she not only made big money off rents but the traffickers were giving her a kickback on money they earned. I will say this for Barbara. She's a very beautiful woman physically, and it's easy to see why my father was attracted to her. Though if I think of her as not my stepmom, she personally does nothing for me. She often got men to do what she wanted because she was pretty. I'm also quite certain that she gave them more than candy, but aside from one very important case, I cannot prove it. What was that case? Well, I moved in with my nice aunt who sheltered me when I went to college for a degree in computer engineering. My smaller inheritance paid for a couple of years of school. My aunt was nice to me, and even though she was still taking care of her own children, she had one son who already married and had his own family, but 3 daughters who still lived at home and were unmarried. She didn't ask me for rent. Her own husband had passed away long ago, so I got to play man of the house, taking care of the yard and fixing things like cars and computers while I lived there. After a couple of years, I lose touch with Barbara and just concede that she won. I also got a job at a computer hobby store where I am a soup-upper of computers to make them go fast. It's a good experience, and though the money isn't so great, at least hey, it is some money, and I'm starting to make a name of myself in the world, or at least in our small city. When I say small city, I really do mean small city, and it's even smaller in a sense that Chinese people in that city tend to live all in one part of it, and everyone knows one another. Eventually, I meet my own girlfriend, Kay, who is much of the same age as me and is going to school to be a nurse. After Kay and I are dating a few months, I start to meet her family. She knows about my living situation, that I live with my aunt and that I have a mean stepmom who threw me out of my dad's house. But I never said Barbara's real name before. So I meet Kay's family, and she has an older brother, Mike, who is about 26. Mike is Chinese like all of us, but he is very heavily tattooed, and he had spent some time in prison because he was a banger as a teenager and did time until his early 20s. He worked for a landscaping company, cutting grass and all that. He is what we call in our neighborhood a cowboy, but I don't know how accurate that translates in English to what I'm trying to say. He is well anyway. After Kay's house and seeing him around a couple of times, Mike overhears me answer one of Kay's questions about my stepmom, and Barbara's name comes up. Mike is saying, "Oh, excuse me, ma'am. Hey, Opie, did you say Barbara's real name? In my neighborhood, everyone calls her little sister May." So I say, "Yeah, that's my stepmom." "Oh," he tells me, "No offense, Opie, but I'm being your stepmom?" No way. Evidently, Mike has sex with all sorts of women in the neighborhood and outside of it too. He brags about all the white and black and Mexican ladies he also landscapes. I haven't really thought about my stepmom other than talking about stuff in the past, so it was interesting hearing what she was up to. I mean, other than being my girlfriend's brother. Mike tells us that Barbara uses her apartment building as a giant cat house where pimps set up their women. Barbara never actually told him this, but he deduced it like an Asian thug version of Sherlock Holmes. He says that a lot of people he knew in prison got put in jail that way. Also, that my stepmom was running for a seat for city council, playing up the fact that she was a hardworking woman of color, blah blah blah, and had aspirations for even higher office. It's clear she wanted to make herself a little empire. Kay asked her brother if he would help us put my stepmom in jail. She had her account set up, so it was really hard to prove she actually knew exactly what her tenants were doing in her buildings. But anyway, if the buildings were shut down, it would at least hurt Barbara's cash flow, and it would put an end to at least some abusive women. Mike said that he would have kept his mouth shut because he liked that my stepmom was basically showering him with money so that he could keep giving her the D, but since his little sister was asking for help, he was willing to forego the money. I piped up and offered to pay him, even though no way I could pay as much as Barbara. He said, "It's fine. You don't need to pay me anything, but if you hurt my little sister, I'll cut your balls off. Deal?" So our plan we come up with was that Mike would set up his cell phone in an out-of-sight place in Barbara's room while they had sex. Basically a sex tape without her knowledge. Mike didn't care about his reputation in America and had plans to leave the country again anyway and go back to China as his own father had a business opportunity for him there. The idea of being it didn't bother him at all, having spent time in jail and also being part of a gang subculture. He also didn't have any trouble scoring drugs. And evidently, he did these drugs with Barbara all the time in her house. So on the day he made up her house, he also made sure to show that Barbara was doing drugs. He minimized his role so that it appeared that it was Barbara who scored the drugs and was offering them to him. He did make her, at my suggestion, to have her say a natural conversation, what day and year it was, and that this was her pass-away husband's house and that her current boyfriend was playing mahjong at a friend's house. Furthermore, Mike added a special touch where, in the throes of sex, he made Barbara denounce her Taiwan boyfriend as a weakling and a fool, not a real man, and that only Mike was capable of giving her a no, really hair-raising stuff, laugh out loud. All of it was in Chinese, but that was okay as the audience would also be Chinese. Mike made sure the video clearly showed Barbara's face. The video was obviously not professionally made, so thankfully, we did not have to see any clear private parts, but it was very obvious what was going on in the film. All told, the video was 20 minutes long. We edited out most of the sex portions because those were unimportant, really. When I say we, I mean Mike and me because, of course, Kay didn't want to look at her own brother and I didn't care to see Barbara either, and thankfully I didn't really have to see any clear picture of her naked, though it was obviously her and she was obviously naked. We shaved the video down to those parts where it was clearly showing Barbara's face, her doing drugs, talking about drugs, and offering them to Mike, her mentioning the date and that this was her pass-away husband's house, them in bed for a few seconds obviously doing it, and the funny part where she made fun of her Taiwanese boyfriend. The relevant video clip we made was slightly less than 10 seconds long. A few days later, Mike went to China to meet up with his parents. A week after that, as politics go, candidates often have to make speeches in front of audiences, and Barbara running for a seat in the city council was no different. Nobody really cares about city council meetings except other politicians and the few dozen people who go to such things. Reading up on her quickly, I learned that Barbara was presenting herself as a woman of high character, a business owner who had set up more than a dozen successful businesses in the area for other immigrants. So basically stealing credit for my father's work. But back to boring political meetings, they're definitely snoozer, but if something interesting happens, such as the politician saying something Hitler would say, someone getting assassinated, or I don't know, an attractive candidate suddenly randomly appearing, it up for all to see in real-time news travels fast. So on the day Barbara was making her little speech in front of maybe 100 people at a local hotel conference room, the public was invited. Oh look, her boyfriend, the Mahjong King, was there too, and all of Barbara's cousins that my dad had sponsored to America and set up for business were there too. Nobody took notice of the young guy in dark sunglasses and beanie sitting in the front row holding a backpack. Even more so because the room was darkened except for the stage. Barbara was going to be the fourth speaker out of maybe 6. While the first speaker made a speech, I silently slid a bazooka Bluetooth speaker out of my backpack and put it near the stage. Such a speaker is about 20 inches tall, 8 inches in diameter, and when set to maximum can be quite loud. I tested it at home to make sure, yep, it would do as I predicted. The level of excitement of the first 3 speakers was like as entertaining as listening to Jessica Simpson try to rap. So it was really a trial to wait for Barbara's turn. So she finally gets on stage and talks about being a good family woman and so on. I pull out my smartphone and use its projector app along with a homemade projector box I built at work so that it could make a nice big image on the closed behind wall. 10 seconds of Barbara telling us where she was, what date it was, how delicious ecstasy is, what her boyfriend is, and oh god, me, Mikey, nice and loud, thanks, bazooka speaker. The audience is so stunned. I have time to loop the video and play it again. Barbara is standing there with her mouth open, eyes wide. Someone in the crowd yells out in Chinese, "Hey, that's Mike." Everyone knows Mike, especially a lot of the ladies. Just as the crowd is starting to reach a crescendo, I grab my speaker and projector box, stuff them into my backpack, and slip out a side door where Kay is waiting with her car running. Before I made this getaway, I made sure to shout out, "This is not a place for you, Barbara. You go now. Bye-bye." I then went to Kay's house and we were so happy. We got engaged by that weekend. I was packed up and moving with Kay to stay with her uncle who lived in a big house near my new school where I'm now finishing my degree. Kay is now a full RN. She brings most of the money, but soon I'll play a bigger role too. From what my aunt tells me, Barbara and her boyfriend broke up, and by broke up, I mean she fled the city because he literally wants to kill her. She lost her bid for a city council, obviously thanks to an anonymous tip. Her bordello apartments were also shut down because of Barbara's shame. Lots of her relatives who own businesses thanks to my dad lost customers, and a few have already gone out of business. The rest are failing fast. My dad's old house fell into foreclosure, and now a nice white family lives there. They're the only white people on the block, so Godspeed, round eyes. Barbara's guests made the rounds on tons of people's Facebooks before it got deleted because of community guidelines. Mike shared this trailer all over the internet to people he knows, and in our neighborhood, everyone knows one another since it was only a few seconds. Lots of people also posted it to their Instagram before it got deleted. Barbara's life is pretty much nuked. The full-length version got posted to various pay sites, but it hasn't leaked to any free streaming services. This is according to Mike, never misses an opportunity to make some cash. Hey yo, Dad, I forgive you for not leaving me that much, other than showing me how to be strong and stand up for myself. This was the best inheritance of all. You in heaven, unless this don't make me for hell instead. Love, Opie. This is Rob from Karma Chameleon. This is one of the best pro-revenge stories I have ever heard. Congrats, Opie, on writing a great tale. I'm so sorry you lost both of your parents at such a young age too. It does sound, however, like your aunt is a wonderful person, and I hope you know that, and I hope she knows that as well. Once again, this is Rob from Karma Chameleon. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.